Y'all ready to build some arrows? What's going on, guys? We're up here in the mountains, and in this video, I'm gonna walk you through building my elk arrows for the 2026 season. Now, let's get started with going over the tools I'm using and then components I'm gonna be using. First off, we have the Modsaw Pro. If you don't already know, the Modsaw is a 3-in-1 arrow saw, squaring tool, and spinner. So this allows me to carry two less tools around. So if you are traveling at an Airbnb, at TAC, on your hunt, and you want to keep something in the truck to build some arrows real quick, the Modsaw makes it super easy to do so. Now this is the professional grade because this is what I had. The regular Modsaw is a little bit more portable, but we're gonna be building them on the Modsaw Pro today. I also am going to be using our paper tuner. So if the wind allows me to, it's been pretty bad this morning, but if I can find a spot that's nice and not a lot of wind, we'll go ahead and whip out the paper tuner and shoot some arrows through to see how they're tuning. Next up, we've got the old trusty Bitzenberger jig with the AE knob. We're gonna be fletching on this. Now for components, I'm going to be building out Easton 5.0s. Now I did use these last year. I'm gonna be building them different this year, but love these arrows. I killed my bull last year with them. Absolutely love the GPI and how I can build these arrows out. After that, we're actually going to be testing some vane configurations against each other. First off, we've got hybrid 26s from AAE. And then based off the Aero Ballistic study, I was super impressed, but with these DCAs, I have the Super Sabres and the Mini Sabres. I know, I pronounced saber wrong.
Saber. Saber. Saber.
Oh, saber.
Yes.
Of course. Saber.
Throughout this entire video, you're going to continue to hear me pronounce it wrong, despite all the videos I've watched on these vanes. Never registered in my head, so saber.
You sure it's saber?
I'm 4 fletching the minis, 3 fletchings the supers, and we're gonna be shooting all those in this video against each other to see how they fly up here in the mountains. Let's start off with cutting the arrows down to length. Now I'm gonna be cutting these down to 29 1/8 inches. I made a rookie mistake and I filmed all the cutting portion. I already cut these upright. Not gonna look good on YouTube. So I'm gonna talk about just some tips while I place some of the videos down in the bottom. First off, I pulled all these shafts out of the package and I've talked about this a lot. Spin all these arrows. You wanna check the consistency throughout these arrows. You have more wobble in the back end, more in the front. So I found that I needed to cut about 1.5 inches off these arrows. Some were perfectly straight, but just the consistency showed me cut that much off the back and then cut the rest of the measurement off the front, and that gave me the straightest part of the arrows. Now tips as far as cutting on the Modsaw. You're going to want to roll counterclockwise into the blade. So you're going to score it. You're not going to just shove it in. You're going to score it, and then as it's scoring, you're going to put some pressure to roll it in. That's going to give you a super clean cut, no splintering at all, and little squaring after cutting. Next up, if you're using the knock-in attachment on either of our saws, I was using the carbon to carbon because it is a little bit easier to swap it around and cut rather than having to pull a knock and put it in the other end. If you're using that knock-in, you have the V in the back. Now, what can happen is if you're not keeping a little bit of back pressure, it can slip down that V as you're turning the arrow. So you're going to want to make sure to keep a little bit of back pressure and make sure you do not put any pressure in the middle when cutting, because that is going to flex the arrow and give you an inconsistent cut. When squaring on the Modsaw Pro, it takes a lot off fast. It's using the side of our diamond coated blade. So all you're going to do is set it on the linear bearings and give it a slight roll, just about a half roll into that blade, and that's going to square it up perfect. If you do more than that, you're going to start taking 16ths and 8ths off your measurement. Now, if you're squaring on the Modsaw, it is manual, so it's not as easy to take too much off, but I do like marking it with a silver Sharpie just to make sure that it's squaring perfectly even and you're not taking too much off. All right, we've got each end of our arrows squared up. Now, when I screwed that video up on cutting, that was actually yesterday morning. So I did go ahead and epoxy in the hit insert system. So it has cured for 24 hours. So I'll include some of those videos down below and talk over some tips. First off, make sure you remove your knocks when using epoxy. What can happen is if you cover that hole on that hit insert it can actually act as a vacuum system and pull that insert in. So remove your nocks just so you've got nice good airflow throughout, and keep your arrows horizontal. Do not keep them upright. What can happen is if that epoxy isn't cured enough to hold the insert, it can actually slide down or up the shaft. And that's going to throw off the depth measurement that you have for your field tips or broadheads. So make sure to keep them horizontal. Lastly, whatever epoxy you're using, go off the recommended time. I know it's hard. We all want instant gratification. Let them sit, because if you don't, they're going to pull out. You're going to be super upset. So let them sit. All right, so now we're going to move on to cleaning the back end of these shafts with a wipe and putting our wraps on. All right, we've got our AE Max Clean Arrow wipes. We're going to start cleaning off these arrows. When wrapping arrows, I like to use a mat if I'm in the shop, or some sort of cardboard. This just has give, and it really helps when you're rolling that arrow onto the wrap for it to stick as best as possible. Now we're going to line these up as best as we can. Key here is whenever you get that first lip started, you're going to want to push it down to make sure that it doesn't roll back on itself. And give it a roll. Just like that. All right, we've got all the wraps on our arrows. So now we're going to be fletching up 9 arrows, 3 arrows for each variant. So we're going to start with the mini sabres. We're going to 4 fletch 3 arrows with the mini sabres. We're then going to 3 fletch super sabres. And lastly, 3 fletch the hybrid 26s. Now in each of these vane configurations, I'm going to be doing a 2-degree right offset. We got the paper tuner set up on the tripod, target on the bed of the truck. We're going to shoot through some paper. Now, this isn't the final say for tuning. This is a really good starting point to get a bullet hole. And then from there, I like to do like group tuning, broadhead tuning, stuff like that. So we're going to shoot through this paper with some bare shafts and see how it looks. I'm at about 4 yards shooting through paper. All right, so we've got a pretty good tear. I did just have these strings put on, and I noticed my arrow wasn't perfectly level, so I think we're going to raise that knocking point. So as you'll see here, I've got a knock low. So we're going to raise the knocking point, and then I've got a little bit of a left tear as well here. So you can move the rest to the right. I'm going to use the Elite set technology. I don't really want to move my rest outside of center shot, maybe like a 16th. I'm going to go ahead and move this set technology just a little bit, and I should be able to clear that up. All right, so last 2 shots are bare shaft and fletched. That is really, really close to a bullet hole. For out in the field, I'm going to call that good for now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to throw the target out there. I did just get a new sight, the Excel driver, so I got to sight it in real quick, but we're going to shoot each of those 3 configurations against each other and see how it pans out. Unfortunately, we did not get to shoot much up in the mountains. I only got to shoot 1 group, and we had some heavy rain come in. So now, today, we are out still in the mountains, but we're in an outdoor range that goes out to 80 yards. I'm going to be shooting probably mostly 60 yards today. This range is known to have quite a bit of wind, some decent gust throughout, so that'll be good for testing these 3 configurations. So we're going to hop right into shooting these guys up against each other. Now, I am going to be shooting them intermittently, so I'll shoot 1 Super Sabre, 1 hybrid, and then 1 Mini Sabre, just so it stays consistent and I'm not shooting 3 at the very end and maybe worn out. Not necessarily looking for hitting in the center of the dot. These are all going to fly a little differently. So just looking for the consistency throughout the group of each configuration. That's how it's looking. So we've got the Super Sabres. So I'll pull the worst group first. So the hybrids left and right were good, but up and down we're not as consistent. So see that. All right, so here's our two best groups. So the Super Sabres and the minis. The supers were a little bit better. Two really nice, one a little left. So overall pretty good. Let's shoot another group. All right, so we've got our last set of groups out here at 60. Let's see how they did. All right, so hybrid 26s, not bad. The mini Sabres actually opened up a little bit. We did have some random gusts come in, so that could have been part of it, but man, these Super Sabres, look at that group, guys. That is a 1.5 inch, 2 inch group at 60. So that's it, guys, as easy as that. The start to finish elk arrow build. That is the way that I build my arrows. Overall, shooting, these Super Sabres really impressed me. They're a very forgiving vane. Now what that means is if I missed a little right, missed a left, it still steered it towards the center. The misses weren't as bad, and that's what I'm ultimately looking for in an arrow vane. All of these flew great. The Super Sabres just wanted to hit the middle, you know, and so these are the ones that I'm going to be running this elk season. The Super Sabre 3 fletch, 2-degree offset to the right. If y'all have any questions whatsoever about arrow building, hunting, whatever it may be, drop it down in the comments. We're more than happy to answer. But overall, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping in. We appreciate it, and stay tuned for more arrow building content.